know where I can get a little tail?
It can be easy to get nostalgic about the most iconic cartoons of our childhoods, whether that's a show like Transformers for the 80s kids, X-Men the Animated Series for the 90s, or Jackie Chan Adventures for the 2000s. But there are also the shows that didn't have the chance for whatever reason to get that popular or have such long runs.
I hate when that happens.
But that doesn't mean those shows aren't really special or in their own ways groundbreaking. One perfect example is Spider-Man the New Animated Series, or as most of us call it, MTV Spider-Man. This one season 3D animated show had huge shoes to fill given the iconic status of the original Spider-Man the Animated Series, and unlike that series, this one found itself airing on a weird channel.
Spider-Man premieres Friday, July 11th at 10.
MTV isn't exactly known for superhero content, and its animated shows like Beavis and Butthead, Daria, and even Celebrity Deathmatch were known more for being edgy.
Oh my God! Someone get that man a shoehorn!
Than classic superheroics.
Hello? Good guy? Saved your butt? Me?
Although, they did have Eon Flux, so that one counts. You could argue that MTV Spider-Man never got a fair shot at becoming iconic. MTV didn't even air the episodes in the right order. But when you go back and rewatch, you'll find that the stories are complex and have a rock-solid comics pedigree, along with a willingness to take risks. And it's also a part of the history of 3D animation arriving at the super advanced place it is right now. You guys have been asking for it, so here it is. Here's everything you didn't know about Spider-Man, the New Animated Series. Spider-Man the New Animated Series was produced by Marvel, Sony Pictures Television, and Mainframe. You might remember Mainframe as the Canadian company that produced Beast Wars and was the earliest producer of 3D animated kid shows. The show aired on MTV for one season of 13 episodes from July 11th to September 12th, 2003. Summer of 2003, am I right? I like the way you do that right there. The show featured the adventures of college-age Spidey at Empire State University. So premise-wise, MTV Spider-Man is similar to his 1994 predecessor in focusing on Pete in college. In MTV Spider-Man, he's classmates with Mary Jane Watson and Harry Osborn. Spidey staple J. Jonah Jameson also makes repeat appearances.
Lizard tail, lizard foot, Spider-Man, lizard, spider. Cop. Well, it's good to know there's the occasional human in your viewfinder.
MTV Spider-Man also gave us a new character, Indira Daimonji.
Everyone just calls me Indy.
Who functions as sort of a Gwen Stacy-esque alternate love interest for Spidey. Lots of the usual villains make appearances, but unfortunately the show was too short-lived for more than just introductions. But it does feature Kingpin,
So long with the spider,
Lizard, Electro,
no one ever cared before.
Kraven,
Interesting thought.
and Silver Sable.
If I paid you to think, I'd have already asked for my money back.
The show also deserves big props for adding new villains to the Spider-Man canon. Most of these villains haven't been used outside of this series, but Marvel should really give them a second look. Shikata, Talon, the Gaines twins. But my personal favorite is Turbojet, a Robin Hood type who evokes Rocket Racer and Blue Streak, but is very much his own character.
You're jealous. You wish everyone liked you the way they like me.
One of the most impressive things about Turbojet's appearance in the series is how he proved this show was willing to go bold, because he's the main villain of the very first episode. You'd think that a new Spider-Man show would be likely to use an iconic villain in its premiere in order to play it safe, but using Turbojet proved the creators were willing to take risks to break new creative ground.
You say that like it would be difficult.
If you're wondering why the Green Goblin isn't on the list of villains we've mentioned before, that's because the show takes place in the same universe of the 2002 Sam Raimi film, where Norman Osborn is already dead.
Peter, don't tell Harry.
In fact, MTV Spider-Man reportedly wasn't supposed to be what it became at all. It started off in development as an adaptation of the hit Marvel Comics series Ultimate Spider-Man. But when the Raimi film dropped and was a huge hit, execs scrapped the plans for the Ultimate Spidey show, and the creators changed the story to pick up where the film left off, to capitalize on its popularity. Ultimate Spider-Man did eventually get adapted into a show in 2012, but you'll get the full story there in a future EYDK episode.
Cool.
But even if we don't say too much about Ultimate Spider-Man today, we have to talk about Brian Michael Bendis, one of the creators of the comic as well as MTV Spider-Man. Reportedly, Bendis was attached to the MTV show when it was still going to be an adaptation of his comic book series. But when the decision to switch to the movie storyline came down, Bendis was kept on board. And I think we have Bendis to thank for a lot of MTV Spider-Man's good storytelling. Because when it comes to Marvel Comics in the 2000s, Bendis is arguably the heavyweight champ. Not only did he create Ultimate Spider-Man, he had huge roles in various Ultimate Universe series, Secret War and House of M. These were intense and dramatic comic arcs, definitely beloved by younger fans in addition to older ones, and also definitely not kid stuff. By that I mean, these books were really character driven, filled out shades of grey when it came to issues about morality and heroism, and didn't necessarily offer easy answers or clean endings. And for a show that was clearly aiming for kids and younger fans, MTV Spider-Man carried over a lot of these good storytelling elements. Take, for example, the first episode again with Turbojet.
Empire State U wants to bulldoze the Villeroy Towers housing project, then the people who live there should be compensated.
The episode grapples with issues surrounding fair housing, wealth inequality, and the relationship between corporations and schools. The episode isn't even just two-sided. Turbojet, the police, Empire State University, and Spider-Man all find themselves fighting for different things. The resolution of the episode is also an uneasy one. People still end up getting removed from their long-term homes, even if they aren't ultimately left completely out in the street. That's a lot to get into in one 23-minute episode. Watching it as a 17-year-old, things really didn't hit home, but watching as an adult, it hits different.
This is just the kind of thing I'm talking about!
Also, I gotta say, Spider-Man animated shows must be cursed because, like its 1994 predecessor,
Mary Jane!
MTV Spider-Man also ends on a cliffhanger. It almost did another Is Mary Jane Dead?
I'm so happy.
But that was wrapped up in the final episode. This show ends on a cliffhanger of whether Spider-Man is throwing in the hero towel.
It's time for me to say goodbye, Spider-Man.
Although, let's be real, if there was a season 2, that wouldn't have stuck. But wouldn't it have been cool to see how they would have applied that classic storyline?
Definitely.
In our episode on Beast Wars, we talked about Mainframe and where 3D animation for television started out. And spoiler alert, in a pretty primitive place considering where it is today. But it's interesting to see how technology had evolved in the time between Beast Wars and MTV Spider-Man.
You underestimated 21st century technology.
Aside from the fact that there was the potential for way more characters in a given shot, what stands out to me is the progress on emotional expressiveness in the face. The faces on Beast Wars were extremely cartoonish and pretty static, but by MTV Spider-Man, the facial expressions have gotten a lot more detailed, which isn't to say they're exactly realistic. The animation of MTV Spider-Man definitely tickles the uncanny valley where things that look somewhat lifelike without being fully lifelike tend to register as kind of freaky to the eye. But still, animation at that level was a natural midpoint between something like Beast Wars and the incredible detail possible with 3D animation today. Alright, intro theme time. So dope. Straight up, one of the most memorable things to me from this show has always been this theme. I mean, come on, the EDM, house music, ravey vibes are pretty unique for a cartoon theme song, and I dig it. Lots of club exit vibes. All you New Yorkers know exactly what I mean. If you're not from New York, it was a popular rave club back in those days.
Let's crank it up!
The theme has no lyrics, which is in keeping with a lot of animated shows of the late 90s and early 2000s, like Jackie Chan Adventures and Batman Beyond. The visuals are pretty standard. Main characters labeled in hero-esque poses, snapshots of action and adventure, and then, what is with the look on Peter's face at the end of the song? When he takes off his mask, he looks mad worried. Is it me, or is that a really weird way to end an intro? Maybe it's commentary on stressful college life. Oh, maybe he just realized he has the runs, huh? I don't know. If you know why he's making that face, please let us know in the comments.
Poor little Spider-Man can't get no respect.
John Digweed and Nick Muir wrote the theme song. They also wrote music for the broader series, and William Kevin Anderson also contributed. Digweed and Muir performed music together as the electronic duo Bedrock, and also wrote music used in the movie TRAINSPOTTING, which is not commonly mentioned here on EYDK, but there it is. Anderson is a frequent EYDK shoutout. He composed for Earthworm Jim,
He's such a groovy guy!
Biker Mice, and X-Men Evolution. MTV Spider-Man was developed by Brian Michael Bendis, Morgan Gendo, and Marcia Griffin. Marvel producing stalwarts of Rod, who produced most Marvel cartoons in the 90s, and Rick Unger, the Biker Mice creator turned political commentator, were both EPs along with Bendis, Gendo, Aldo Payton, and of course Stan Lee. Outside of Spider-Man, Gendo is a journeyman TV writer with credits on Star Trek The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Law & Order. Griffin has served as a writer and as a producer on animated superhero shows like Guardians of the Galaxy, X-Men Evolution, and Batman the Brave and the Bold. The directing staff isn't loaded with household names, but the directors on Spider-Man contributed to a wide range of iconic shows like Reboot, Pinky and the Brain, Young Justice, Beast Machines, and more. Not counting the character creators, there were 10 writers on MTV Spider-Man according to IMDb. The aforementioned writer-producer Gendo had the most credits with 8 episodes. Frequent EYDK mention and KISS TV writing staff staple Greg Johnson wrote an episode. He was one of the head writers on X-Men Evolution. As with the directors, the writing staff had less standout stars and more solid contributors to a wide range of shows, but we felt it was worth mentioning that a bunch of the writers wrote for the forgotten Pamela Anderson action comedy show, VIP.
Okay, the coast is clear.
You know, the one with celebrity bodyguards?
Are you sure you're a real bodyguard?
You're still alive, aren't you?
I mean, come on. How could we let that get forgotten? We love you, Pam. MTV Spider-Man had a decent-sized cast considering it was only 13 episodes long. There were 44 actors total. Neil Patrick Harris voiced Peter Parker.
Here you are, saving me again.
Oh, man's gotta have hobbies.
The timing of MPH playing Spidey is really interesting because even though of course Spider-Man is an amazing part, this was sort of the last role of the post-DOOGIE HOWSER phase of his career. Because 2004's Harold and Kumar.
Dude, DOOGIE HOWSER MD was like my favorite show growing up. You were my idol.
Yeah, that's great. Can we get going? I'm bored as back here.
And then 2005's How I Met Your Mother.
If I can talk a stripper into paying me for a lap dance, I think I can talk my way out of a ticket.
Were the two things that really brought about the adult MPH renaissance that we're still living in today.
Holy crap.
Lisa Loeb voiced Mary Jane.
What I'm trying to say is, there's someone else.
She's probably better known as a singer-songwriter than as an actress. She wrote and performed the 1994 #1 platinum hit, Stay, I Miss You.
You say, I only hear what I want to.
Which, incidentally, has this music video that you probably remember playing a lot on MTV when they were still actually playing music videos. Also, straight up, your boy had a huge crush on Lisa Loeb.
Here we go again.
Sharknado and Beverly Hills 90210 icon Ian Ziering voiced Harry Osborn.
By each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. Capitalism, baby.
He's been all over EYDK lately. I think we gotta add him to the EYDK Hall of Fame. Which reminds me, we gotta build that.
Never.
Angel Brooks voiced Indy.
Were you about to ask me out?
I'm pretty sure that's where I was headed.
She also had an important role in the aforementioned VIP.
This is a pit.
Keith Carradine was J. Jonah Jameson.
The human rat outlives entire civilizations, overruns whole cities at will. Huh? What do you think?
A member of the famous Carradine family and brother of genre icon David Carradine, Keith was on Deadwood.
The light I show it in. What's it worth to you?
Oh, and Lundy on Dexter.
You've caught me off guard here. Sloppy blood work.
There's also a nice variety of buried treasure in the smaller parts. Virginia Madsen of Dune and Candyman was Silver Sable.
I've got all the evidence on my Palm Pilot. Now let me do my job!
Michael Dorn, Worf on Star Trek TNG was Craven.
Well, we don't have a choice now, do we?
Keith David was Agent Mosley.
How long have you been in cahoots with Spider-Man?
Michael Clark Duncan played Kingpin.
Follow this, you half-wits.
A role he would also play in the live-action Daredevil movie. Jane Lynch voiced an Oscorp exec.
Your father was afraid you might not share his enthusiasm.
Filmmaker Rob Zombie voiced Dr. Connors.
I hope you're not thinking you'd rather be out there having mindless enjoyment instead of helping me rewrite the textbook on cell regeneration.
Kathy Griffin and Jeremy Piven voiced the twins. That's a weird one.
Good. He's ready.
I could feel it in his mind.
And the legend Stan Lee himself had a cameo as Frank Elson.
Wouldn't that anger you feel be better channeled into revenge?
As we've said, MTV Spider-Man was short-lived, so the amount of related merch and media is pretty small. Apparently there were 2 and only 2 toys released in conjunction with the show, both produced by Toy Biz: Spider-Man and a lizard action figure. Yeah, I need those. Unfortunately, there aren't any comics or video games associated with the show either.
What the hell?
We're surprised that there weren't any dedicated comics reflecting the style and content of the show, as that's something that's pretty common for Marvel or DC animated shows, but maybe that would have been a season 2 thing had there been one.
Yeah, that would be nice.
But for people looking for more Bendis work, there's of course loads of comics to look to. I mean, he co-created Miles Morales, for crying out loud. And given that this show exists more or less in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man narrative continuity, I guess we can count those as extensions. Damn right, those are always worth a rewatch.
You like me. You really like me.
Now, since we don't have as much additional media as we normally like to showcase in this section, we want to give a special shout out to the Change.org petition trying to raise signatures to get season 2 of this series made. They've got almost 1,500 so far. By the way, the petition for the 94 Spidey animated series to come back is over 6K signatures. Those two petitions need to get together to get those numbers up. By 2003, Marvel characters were on their way to becoming the cinematic and cultural powerhouses they are today. And as we said, the blossoming of Marvel films dictated the story content of MTV Spider-Man. But it's pretty funny to think about how even as Marvel was about to overwhelm the mainstream, its shows were still waffling in popularity and trying out different homes. MTV may not have been the ideal partner for the Marvel spirit, but MTV execs purportedly gave the creators of MTV Spider-Man more lax standards about content. Having said that, many fans feel that MTV's hyper-concern with seeming cool is apparently the reason Aunt May never appears in the series except in this picture frame. Because apparently older people aren't cool? Screw that, man. Aunts, uncles, and grandparents are pretty cool, fam. We love you.
Such good feelings.
These days, any network would probably be begging to have a taste of the Marvel Universe, and the only one setting the terms about what would be in the show would be Marvel. Or, I guess, Mickey Mouse now? You know, because Disney owns them.
Wait, oh, what?
But given how consistent Marvel's work has become in terms of tone, it's fun to look back at a Marvel show that tried something a little different and still told a classic comic story really, really well. But what do you think? Do you refuse to watch Spidey shows that don't feature Aunt May? Where would you rank MTV Spider-Man in the pantheon of Spidey shows? Oh, also, what is going through his mind making this face? Let's make a new meme here, guys. Come on, in the comments. Face you make when this happens. Let's go. And go.
See ya.
He does look like he just realized he has to run. For new episodes I drop every other week, subscribe over there. And for more EYDK, click over there. Or he like forgot he had finals tomorrow.